Here we go. Welcome to Double Dribble Bucks. I am Seth. With me, as always, is my good friend Brett. How you doing tonight, Brett?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited that we got basketball coming back. It feels like we've had a really long stretch without it, so I'm looking forward to getting back to some real games coming up.
Yeah, long All-Star weekend break here. And I did not get a chance to see it, unfortunately. So maybe this is a little bit of a kind of interview to start the pod this week. I know that you got a chance to catch most of it,
I did.
if not all of
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I was kind of curious to get some of your thoughts. I've heard some of the banter out there, and just curious what you think about some of these things. So maybe the first thing I wanted to ask about is, first of all, did you watch? This is probably one of the lower tiers of the All-Star weekend, but did you watch the Skills Challenge?
I did. So
Okay.
anything that happens on a Friday night, I missed. So I didn't see anything Friday. So I didn't see like the Rising Stars game or whatever that is. But I did watch almost all of Saturday night. I would say all of Saturday night and 90% of Sunday. So I think I know quite a bit.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So Skills Challenge. How about this? When Wemby and Chris Paul, were they the first ones to go?
First ones to go. They clearly had a plan to try to get the fastest time because
Did you know that before they started?
no, definitely not.
Okay.
You could tell that Wemby was really committing, and it was kind of surprising because you're like, oh, I'm kind of surprised that you care about this at all. And then when he got up to the 3-point line, he kind of just chucked it up. Like he didn't even really look up from the basket, or what do you want to call it? The thing with all the balls.
Three-pointer.
For the 3-point.
The rack.
The rack. There you go, the rack. He didn't even really look up for the rack. He just kind of tossed him up and then just kind of found a way to race through the course. And at first I was like, okay, maybe because he's 7'4", he doesn't want to do that because maybe, I don't watch a ton of Wemby, but I'm picturing that slower shot, and maybe he was just thinking I can make a three all day, but I'm not a quick shooter. So this is just what I'm going to do. But then when Chris Paul came out and did it, that's the moment that everyone was like, oh, what are you doing? For some reason, it was weird. Because, Wemby doing it wasn't, overly surprising. It was kind of I don't really know what you're doing. But when Chris Paul did it, then you're like, okay, this is, your plan. And they were genuinely, it was so weird. I think the weirdest part of the whole thing is it's All-Star Weekend. It's supposed to be fun, right? That's kind of the huge part of the whole thing. And so they're kind of arguing oh, that should have counted. Okay, again, it's supposed to be fun. So you could easily have someone come over and be like, yeah, guys, come on. We're not going to count that. We're just going to move on. But the guy who came over to talk to them was way too serious. He got the rule book, and then he was telling Allie LaForce, I think.
LaForce.
To get away. Get away, we're not doing this right now. It was what are you talking about? This isn't a huge controversy. This is the first guys running through the skills challenge. Chill out. It was really weird. She had to then report from far away on what was happening, and the announcers were get in there, Allie, it's your job to find out what this is. And she's talking over. It was so weird. And then you could tell Wemby was pretty quick. He was just kind of crossing his arms, just whatever, this is dumb. And the guy kept arguing to Chris Paul, and it almost looked like Chris Paul was I don't really care anymore, either. You kind of are ruining the whole thing. You either would have accepted it as wow, that was a cool thing he did, or you're just not doing it, and who gives a shit, it's a skills thing. But I thought the weirdest part is that guy took way, way, way too serious.
So when you saw it, were you thinking, this is great? Yeah, this is hilarious. This is awesome. I like this. Or were you thinking this is so dumb? Why are you not taking real shots?
No, I thought it was great. I was have fun with it. That's the whole thing. It's it's the skills thing. You win a trophy, and that's great. But I don't think a lot of people are displaying their 2025 All-Star Skills Challenge trophy above some of the other ones. Yeah, it's cool to have, but honestly, I don't think they gave a shit. It was just kind of we're going to be here, we're going to have some fun, and that's just what we're going to do. And it just got ruined really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick.
I like the concept of them trying to beat the system of this dumb thing that no one cares about, and I think everyone, for the most part, thinks it's bad. Thinks it's like not really a fun all-star thing. It should be changed to something else. So it's like, yeah, go for it. Apparently there's a rule that they spend a lot of time thinking about this, and you have to take a concerted effort at making the shot. I guess that's in the rule book. Why did that's the other thing is, I guess Wemby and them, they didn't check that. Did they not?
I don't know. I don't think it was that's the problem. I think it was too big of a deal. Like, it was kind of just like, hey, let's just go out there and have fun and just see if we can do the best time. And we're gonna do all these things, but who cares about the shot? Because like, if you don't make it, you don't lose any points. Like, let's just go have fun and whatever.
What a bad system. Who created this in the first place?
Yeah,
the shots don't matter at all. Like,
yeah,
if
that's
you
the
make
thing.
the shot, do you gain a second if you make a shot? Like, are you saying it doesn't matter? You just have to shoot the ball.
Correct. I think I think each rack you get 2 or 3 balls. And if you miss the first, you have to then do the second and the third. But if you make the first one, you just move on.
Oh, okay.
So that will allow you to speed it up, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But to Wemby and Chris Paul, it's like, well, then yeah, like, if it doesn't really matter, throw the ball up there and just as quick as you can. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And it was just like, it could have just been fun, and they could have just come up and said like, all right, we're gonna pass you along to the next round, but like, you can't do that. And then maybe they'd even be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, we were just trying to like have fun. But
do you know who won?
Oh man, no, I don't know if I do. I think it was. So one of the matchups was the top 2 picks from this year's draft.
Okay, interesting.
Alex Sarr and the kid from Atlanta.
Ricochet or something.
Yeah, exactly. I think they won because then I think it was Draymond Green and somebody on Golden State was the other matchup, I think.
25 Kia Skills Challenge featured 4 NBA doers going head-to-head. Team Cavaliers, Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Took home the crown. So
that's right. Okay.
Great event. Okay. Yeah. Well, they made it interesting.
The thing is, like, I always look forward to the NBA All-Star Weekend because it is fun. Like, you think about it, like, it's supposed to be lighthearted. They still play. It's not like the Pro Bowl where no one gives a shit at all. Like, you cannot force those guys to play at all. So it's like, whatever. At least the NBA players are doing stuff. Dunk contest, it's always supposed to be fun. Like, all these things are supposed to be fun. It never lives up to, like, what you think it's going to be. It's always kind of like, that was kind of dumb that I spent so much time watching that thing. But, again, to, like, take away any aspect of fun, to have, like, a rule book come out on a stupid skills thing was, like, it really was such a dumb thing. I can't emphasize that enough. It really was.
Yeah. There's been talk, actually, years ago they did horse. I don't know if that was before the skills challenge or in addition to it, but there's also been talk of one-on-one basketball. Do you like either of those, or do you have other ideas for something to do instead of the skills challenge?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's lots of things besides the skills challenge. That just has to go. A game of 21 would be pretty awesome to watch because you could do 2-on-2 and make that work. I think that potentially could be entertaining. You could also do something like, at a halftime show for an NBA game, they'll have like do a layup, do a free throw, do a 3-point, do a half court. Like, they could do that and time that. That would be more entertaining because you get as many shots until you make it. That would be more entertaining than the skills challenge. Nobody cares how well you dribble. Like, if you're watching an NBA game, like, yeah, you're going to be like impressed that, Kyrie Irving can handle the ball as well as he can. But I don't want to watch like him do that and just do that. Like, who gives a shit? Like, that's dumb. Or, oh, hey, here comes a great chest pass. Remember the chest pass? No, who cares? Like, come on, nobody cares about that stuff. Like, move on. Like, you could still say John Stockton is great because I don't watch the highlights of him just dishing it the whole time. Like, it's part of like a whole thing. So I don't know. I think it's got to go. It's dumb. It's pointless. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah, passing only works in a real game. When it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that was a great pass. Like, that was awesome. You can't really recreate that outside of a competitive game.
Do you think there's like a Max McClug of passing that like he's just going to come up for the skills challenge every year and just be like schooling people on his chest passes, but he can't actually make it into the NBA? I mean, that's what I would like to see.
Yeah. I think the person that comes to mind, although he was a decent NBA player, I can't think of his actual name, but White Chocolate is what we called him.
Oh yeah, Jason Williams.
Jason Williams.
Yeah,
He
and
was
I only know
known
that
to
because
have,
I've seen like lots of videos of him recently.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he had a lot of razzle dazzle behind the back passes, and usually was actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I can't think of any current day players that really do that. Like the great passers of today aren't really razzle dazzle. They're not doing crazy behind the back stuff.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
There's no like Pete Maravich anymore. I mean, Jason Williams tried to do that and was pretty good at it, but yeah, after that it just kind of went away.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about the dunk contest? What are your thoughts? What's your takeaway on the dunk contest?
So first things first, I was disappointed in the benefactor. He just it just seemed like he was relying too much on his talent. I feel like he didn't prep. He kind of was the guy that like, well, I'm not going to study for the test. I'm just going to show up, and if I know it, I know it. Like, I kind of felt that mentality because he just didn't have a lot of creativity. He couldn't make stuff work, and I felt bad for him. That being said, the other guy from the Bulls that also couldn't do anything either.
I didn't see one highlight of him. Did he make a dunk? Did he do anything?
He made one of his 2 attempts. Like one he just used up all the time and couldn't make anything happen.
Okay.
So if you just saw those 2 people, you would say the worst dunk contest in the history of dunk contests. Like think back to like the worst one I remember seeing is when there wasn't a time limit. I don't know if you happen to remember that at all. And it was like these guys were taking like 20 minutes to set up their dunk, and then they'd miss, and people would be like, "Are you kidding me? Like, come on, dude! Like, how much time do we have here?" But if you watched Castle versus McClug, that was legitimately amazing. Yes, as Bucks fans, we all wanted Ajax to win. It wasn't going to happen. Watching Max McClug dunk the way he dunked was super impressive. Every single dunk was a perfect 50, and I really can't argue against it.
The thing about him is he just jumps over stuff and people.
Yeah.
Is that
right.
like it's every time that's what it is. And he bumped.
He had one where he
first.
like did a juke midair.
Yeah.
Like he jumped, brought it down, brought it back up, and but I don't know. It's impressive because I could never do that. It's one of those things like I was watching it and then turning to Ashley and be like, would you rather be able to jump with that ease or like run like super fast? Like that's kind of like, it's almost like a superpower. These guys have like mini superpowers, which is fun to watch. But you've heard it on other podcasts and other takes. It's weird that he's not in the NBA and is doing this. Like I don't understand it. Unless if this was kind of like a open casting thing, right? I would be more on board if it was like, hey, one year we had a tournament to see who could like be like the Joe Schmo in the dunk contest, and this guy came in and he freaking won it, and so he gets to defend the title as long as he wants. Because then if he has all day to work on dunks and stuff like that, that makes sense. This is all this guy's got. He used to be an accountant, and now he's won the slam dunk contest, and if he does it another year, he gets like $1 million. So yeah, of course he's going to do that. But to have a guy that's like barely playing professional basketball is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, good thing is he's great at it, but I don't know if I want to keep watching that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things there. One is it's not fair because he can spend, apparently he was taking a lot of time practicing in a gym, someone allowed him to have a car driven into a gym, and he was like taking all this time. Meanwhile, like Ajax and Castle start for their teams and play like, or needing to like win games to get into the playoffs and get a good seed. Like they're, they're playing
Right.
basketball. Like, that's
Yeah.
their thing. This
Yeah.
is just a fun All-Star weekend thing that maybe they're gonna take a little bit of time to think about what dunk am I going to do and practice it a little bit. But yeah, it seems like McClung, whatever his name is. Yeah, he was taking hours, for weeks practicing this stuff. So for one, it's not fair. You're not on the same level. But secondly, it's All-Star weekend. Should we just be highlighting All-Stars, the top players? So maybe they don't, maybe I'm open to they don't make the All-Star team, but they're, the next tier. They're still players that everyone knows. They're starters at the very least, not guys who might play, 5 minutes a game. So those two, I kind of have two problems with him being in the contest. And it's like, and this is to, showcase the game of basketball to everybody. And you're going to showcase someone who never plays. Like, that's just kind of an odd decision from like a PR perspective as well. So, I mean, it's cool. It's kind of an underdog story, but if you want just like legitimately the best dunks, then it's not going to be the NBA players. It's going to be some random street ball guys who are just dunking all year, like, and that would be a whole different thing. So it is kind of like in between with someone like with a G leaguer, basically being one of the guys. I'm not really on board with it, but I am happy for him.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a real stat, but I feel like growing up, like the only people that could participate in these events were the people that were there for the All-Star game. Now that would be awesome, and I think I get why they don't do it, but I also wish they would go back. You don't want to do it because as these guys are making more money and spending more focus on this, they're just like, I'm not going to go over and above to like jeopardize the main goal here, right? I'm not going to do that kind of crap. But if there's an incentive, maybe that helps a little bit. But if a goal is to become an all-star, but you can still go to the all-star weekend pretty much anytime you want. Like, you can just say, yeah, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go. It takes away, I think, some of the being special. Like, if you could say, hey, the only time I went was in the Rising Stars game where I was one of 10 to 12 guys that was picked to go to All-Star game as like an up-and-coming guy, and I'm going to fight to go back by being an all-star one day. But the fact that you just get to go and watch all this stuff is, I don't know, it takes away from it.
Yeah, definitely. I did want to say that. So I saw a lot of the highlights on Twitter and whatnot. So I probably saw all the dunks, I'm guessing. The best dunk that I saw was Castle. Someone made a shot, and then he caught the ball as it was falling. I think then went between the legs and dunked it. I mean, when I saw that, I'm like, how do you do that? Is that possible? Did he just do that?
I think the one thing you're missing is I think as it came through his legs, he dunked it left-handed.
Okay, yeah.
So add to how
just,
crazy it was. Yeah,
it just seemed that seemed like the most difficult one at the very least, and it also I thought looked pretty cool. So yeah, it seemed, and I heard that didn't get a 50.
No, I think it was like so. Again, here we go. So the judges, right? So you had Vince Carter was a judge, Kevin Garnett, which fine, whatever, like he's not a dunker, and then some like random social media kid.
Really?
And then it was like
a TikToker or a YouTube guy, like who?
Yeah, exactly.
Gen Z
he
knows
was like
who they are or whatever.
He would not give Castle anything higher than a 49. He just wouldn't do it.
The social media guy was the guy who didn't give him the 10.
Yeah, and I can't remember the other judges, but there was someone else that was like kind of holding back too, and it was like, come on, like I don't know what you're doing. Like if you just want to watch people jump over a car, to your point, yeah, just get a bunch of street ballers that this is just what they do and put on a show. Like the whole idea is like we want to see the guys that we see all the time be creative and do something that, like you go to a Bucks game, you want to watch the Bucks win, but you also want to see Giannis throw it on a dunk. Like you would just love to see that. So being able to see those guys potentially dunk with no obstacles should be exciting. But it just got out of hand. And I think the problem is it kind of got so far that I don't know if they can kind of pull it back. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a limit to what you can do as well. I I feel like we've reached that. Although if we had like the best dunkers in the world compete, we would all probably be blown away by what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're probably, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know what an NBA guy is going to do. But I don't know. They come up with stuff, just like what I just said. I guess I was super impressed with that dunk by Castle. So,
yeah,
some of these guys are going to come up with something. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I think we are both kind of saying the main thing that we'd be excited to see is have the all-stars in the dunk contest, have like legit guys. And I guess there was talk. I feel like every year there's talk. John Morant said something, Giannis jumped in and said something, but it doesn't happen every year. I feel like.
Yeah, there was I don't know. I think it's been 10 years ago now that LeBron said he was signing up. He's like, I'm putting my name in right now.
There you
go.
He
never did it. Fine. Like, you don't have to do it. But I think Giannis is the best out. Is like to John Morant, if you do it, then I will do it. So now it's on you.
That's right.
So now I don't have to say, like, I'll also do it. It's like, no, only if you're in it will I do it. So.
And John Morant totally should do it. I don't know if he's hurt. Again, he's hurt all the time, but he is a high flying. He dunks with force like that. He's the kind of guy that we want to see.
Yeah. The problem is, as long as they can go back to like actual all-stars being in it, then great. But if you're just going to have jump over cars and stuff like that, it's going to get old.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything to say about the 3-point contest? I heard basically nothing about it.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty what you would expect. I still find it weird that Starry is such a major sponsor of that. Because they have the Starry ball, which is worth 3 points. And it just seems like it's just like in the way. Like it doesn't seem like it's extra deep. Or it doesn't seem like it's anything other than a promotion. So it just feels off. Like I don't get what you're doing there. And the funny thing is, so I like Reggie Miller as a announcer. I think he's makes it entertaining enough. But he does not know how to call a 3-point contest. Like holy shit, that guy like. He'd be like, all right, this is his spot. This is where he gets super hot. And then he'd like miss. And he'd be like, well, some guys just don't have it. And then he'd make 4 in a row. And he's like, okay, now it's like, I know it's hard to do. I'm not saying it's easy. But you could just not like dial into what was happening at all. And it's like, isn't that like a huge part of your game? Can't you like watch a guy and see like, oh, it looks like he is feeling it or this is going to happen? Like, no, you're just way off in every take you had. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah. And Dame, did he do well?
No, he didn't even get out of the first round.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I think he was okay because now he's, I think, more focused on basketball. That's the way I'm going to take it. More focused on winning like championships, and he's like, whatever. Like at this point, who gives a shit?
Yeah. All right. Well, the All-Star game is kind of different this year. They split into 3 teams drafted by the TNT crew. And then the 4th team was the winner of the Rising Stars game, I believe. So there were 3 games, kind of a mini tournament. Did that work for you? Did you kind of like that? Or do you think it was more competitive than it's been?
Yeah, I didn't mind the mini tournament. I think that was kind of a cool idea. I liked the TNT crew doing the draft, I guess. It was kind of weird that it worked out the way it did because it was like all the international guys were on one team, all the old guys. Like, it's like, okay, well, now it makes it almost guaranteed that it wasn't actually a draft. You guys just kind of like set it up. That's kind of weird. And you can't keep doing that year after year because the TNT crew isn't going to be drafting. So it's kind of just like, as I start to dissect it, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I like it as much. I didn't mind the mini tournament. It wasn't bad. First to 40, requires teams to play a little defense if they want to be into it. You go down 15-0, like you better step up or you're done. I don't know what the incentive is to win it, but yeah, I mean, I thought the concept made sense. That's for sure.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, I didn't watch it, and I've heard really mixed results out there. But I think some of the negative talk, it seems that it wasn't really about the game as much as it was about TNT. And I guess they took this huge break in the middle. Was it in the middle of a game or was it between the games before the last game started?
Okay, so first of all, for the whole tournament, we have to realize it's the first to 30, I think, right?
First to 40, you said? Yeah.
30 or 40.
I think it's 40.
So when they would get to like 15 or 20 points, they would pause the game and take a long commercial break.
Okay.
Like longer than you would expect. commercial break, right? Not like crazy long. So you're like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, I kind of wish you would just play the game and have commercial breaks or something like that. But like, whatever. That's not the end of it. The TNT thing, it was very cool to kind of have them like get their flowers and their celebration and stuff like that. But honestly, in the middle of it, I turned to Ashley and I was like, wait a minute, isn't this game still going on? Like, what's happening? It was such a long break that you really kind of forgot that the game was in the middle of the game. Like, it wasn't. You would, looking back as someone that didn't see it, you'd be like, oh, it was definitely between the two games. And for a moment, you'd be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then as you're kind of like looking back, it's like, no, that was literally like the long commercial break, come back, have a full like halftime. And this is a game to 40. It's not like it's a long game. Mm-hmm. So you had like a big Super Bowl halftime in between. You came back and you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot that this game's even still happening. And at that point, I actually turned it off because I was like, I'm kind of lost all momentum and I'm kind of done at this point. So I didn't see who won the very final one or MVP because it was just like, you killed it. I've lost all interest at this point.
Wow, that is bad. It sounds ridiculous. Like, how would that pass anybody who's in charge kind of making these decisions? You think that would just be an obvious, like, oh, well, no, that's going to take way too long. We can't do it at that time. We have to do it between the games or before the games start or at the end. Or it's just like, I can't believe that passed it's probably a number of people who have to kind of pass on that. It sounds ridiculous.
I think it would have been fine if the game wrapped up, they gave out their MVP, they did their post-game interviews, and then did that for the last like half hour. Because like the last half hour they usually break down the game. Well, they're coaching the games, they're not gonna really break it down. It's not a traditional all-star game. So use that time to have another half hour where you talk about like how great you are and people can continue to tune in or not. Like that's fine.
Yeah, and
like,
that fits in with Inside the NBA because their show goes on for like a half hour after the games on Thursday night, having a ton of fun. It sounded like some of the players were maybe somewhat involved in this, like they signed a jersey or something like that. And so if you're going to involve them, like afterwards, everyone's jovial and feeling good. The game's over and you're joking around, trash talk is involved. That seems perfect and in the spirit of Inside the NBA. So that's another how do you not do that?
Yeah, it's so each coach got a jersey that was signed by their team, I guess, or all the teams. They didn't clarify that very well. But yeah, it was almost kind of like, it was so awkwardly done that you were almost like, maybe this is why the NBA didn't want to re-up with TNT, because maybe it's just getting stale, and it's not the guys, it's potentially a new producer or someone that wants to put their own stamp or change the way you do things. I don't think Inside the NBA has really changed, but that made it feel weird, and it really belonged at the end. Super weird when they had it happen. So yeah, I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. Huh. All right, and it's funny because they're coming back. They're just not going to be on TNT, but right. Inside the NBA, he's going to be back. All right. All right. Let's jump into some Bucks talk. We haven't talked since the trade, since Kuzma played, and then we got Kevin Porter Jr. So I think it's been 4 games that we've seen him play. Unfortunately, with no Giannis, so we haven't really seen the full new Bucks yet. But after 4 games, I guess, what are your first impressions of Kuzma and how he fits in?
So first of all, he's kind of doing what I kind of touched on the last time, where I think he realizes this is a place to come and play basketball and win. It's not anything else. And I don't know if you saw Bobby Portis did an interview where he kind of told Kuzma, like, hey, you don't need to dress in all that crazy shit you did before because this is Milwaukee. Everything's closed when the game's over. Like, you're not going out. Like, you go home and you go to bed. Like, because it's all just closed at this point. He's like, wear like a workout suit and come to the game and get ready to play. Like, it's not a fashion show. This is Milwaukee. We're coming here to play and win. Mm-hmm. And I think the first couple of games, you can kind of get that sense that Kuzma is dialed in. And I don't know if it's that there was potentially something that's not true about him, thinking that he was immature and he's trying to prove incorrectly, or if maybe he was like, I went to this purgatory of the Washington Wizards where it's like, yeah, I got paid a lot of money, but it wasn't fun playing basketball with potentially not great fans cheering for you, maybe an inept coach, maybe an organization that is wrong. Like, you kind of feel like, all right, I thought this was going to be my dream job, and now I'm kind of hating playing in the NBA now. Whereas you come to Milwaukee, and it's like, all right, you're not going to be the number one option. You better show up and bust your ass. And I think he was kind of like ready for it, because I think interviews I saw from him, the way that I kind of see his demeanor on the court, I think he's like, yeah, like, let's do it. So I think that's kind of what my vibe I'm getting from him early on.
Yeah, something that he has done that kind of stood out to me, which I don't, maybe Giannis does this, but I don't know if anyone else on the Bucks does this, is Kuzma will grab the rebound and immediately go down the court and like on a fast break. He'll like he'll get the rebound, he'll start dribbling on a fast break with the idea of let's get some transition points. And yeah, I think only Giannis does that. I'm trying to think. I don't really know if Giannis does that often, unless it's like obvious that he's going to be able to get something done. Kuzma will do it just to like push the pace, and maybe we can get something out of this, So I really liked that look, and just like how much faster the Bucks look with him out there, with him doing things like that. In addition to the rebounds, he gets a ton of rebounds. So that's definitely nice to see as well. So he fits. He's filling some gaps that we have pretty obviously. So like after seeing, we talked about it before he played. Now that he's played, that is happening. He is filling those gaps. The thing to watch out for, I guess, is just, hopefully he doesn't take too many dumb shots. And so far, I don't think he has. I think he's taken good shots for the most part, and he doesn't always make them. It doesn't mean he's going to shoot efficiently, but as long as he's not, taking a shot with 19 seconds left on the shot clock, from like 25 feet away, or, just taking contested shots with a bunch of time left on the shot clock, like just don't force shots. You have really good players around you. Let's move the ball. Let's get good shots. You're not in Washington anymore. So yeah, he hasn't really done much of that. I wish I had seen him in Washington, because I wonder how different it would look. Probably a lot different. So I'm pretty happy, and I'm pretty interested to see what it's going to be like with Giannis and what lineups Doc is going to utilize. And maybe I'll throw it back to you with this. Like, what do you think the starting lineup should be? And do you think Doc's going to change it?
That's a great question. I think the interesting thing with Kuzma is he's bigger than you think. He's 6'10", I think.
6'9", 6'10". Yep.
Yeah, something like that, which is funny because like Chris Middleton I always thought was like a 6'5", 6'6". He was actually 6'8". Mm-hmm. So it's like maybe I'm just dumb, but
the way guys play is just sometimes
maybe that's
really
it's hard to tell.
Doesn't line up at all with how tall they are with some of these players and how they play.
Yeah, but Kuzma is about Bobby Portis' size, which is great on so many levels, because it's like, all right, well, as infuriating as it can be to have Lopez and Bobby out there at the same time, Doc seems to like that. Something about it might be working. So he can still stick with two bigs out there, but in different capacity. When Brooks out there, your rim protection is going to be fantastic, but you're going to be slower. The transition offense and defense is going to take a hit. Where if you put Bobby and Kuzma out there, like, you potentially could push the pace. They're both way more athletic, can make shots, do all these types of things. So as far as who should start, I would like to see Dame, Ajax, Kuzma, Giannis, and Lopez probably to start, just to kind of see what's happening. Have three big guys out there, potentially draw fouls off their bigs, because if you can get their bigs out, that's going to allow Brook to kind of hang around the paint for defense, and allows Giannis to attack the rim all day, and that's going to be like a huge key to getting a win. If he doesn't, and then I think then when you have people coming off the bench, you get Bobby and Prince and Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green. Like, now you got some really great talent coming off the bench at the same time. So I think that's kind of where I would be. Do you have an idea where you would have the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think I'd do the same thing. The question is Ajax, who obviously I love Ajax. Everyone knows that. Um, but you have him and you have Kuzma out there and you have Giannis. And so Giannis and Kuzma are not good 3-point shooters. Ajax actually is, but he doesn't really do much else. You know, he's kind of not really creating for at least for himself, and kind of sometimes passing up open shots. You know, that's kind of on him to take those shots.
Yeah.
But you know, just sometimes not, maybe kind of an awkward offensive player there. So I think I would do that to start, and I would see how it goes. But I would be pretty open to putting Ajax on the bench and having him come off the bench and start with a 3-point guy. So whether it's Gary Trent or AJ Green,
Yeah.
Who honestly Trent's been playing pretty awesome the past month.
Yeah,
and Green's
he really has.
kind of taking a step back, it seems. But either way, either one of those guys, it might make more sense for them to start, get that 3-point threat, spread the floor more. At the same time, I am excited about those lineups with Kuzma and Giannis and Ajax, and just how fast and hopefully more defensive, you know, even dominant would be awesome. You know, how good can we be? I guess with Dame out there, it's kind of, you know, the defense probably isn't going to be dominant, but I just like how fast and quick and focused on defense and better rebounding as well with those guys. And if you have Bobby instead of Lopez, like that's an interesting lineup. That's a pretty fun lineup. I'm kind of curious what that's going to look like. So Kuzma is really a great piece to have, and just to kind of play around with these different lineups. Just someone that we didn't have that kind of a guy. And so even, you know, we all wish that he was a better 3-point shooter and a free throw shooter. But outside of that, he's pretty much the exact guy that we've wanted. And so, and he's, you know, defense is the key, I guess, and rebounding. And so if he can be a really good defender, you know, maybe he is the difference that this team needed. The team needed something. Like, why are we bad? Why is our starting lineup a negative net rating? I mean, that's unbelievable. Like, what the hell? And by the way, we've played how many games? We're 2/3 of the way through the season, and we have a negative rating with our starting lineup. And we've had the same starting lineup since we were 2-8, right? Is that when Ajax was thrown into the starting lineup sometime in there?
Yeah.
It's like, you probably should have changed something. You're like, this lineup's not working. Like, we should have a positive starting lineup. You know, like how?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we have a positive record. We do have a positive net rating overall. So I mean, there's some of these bench units and Knicks bench starting units are actually better. And it's like, why are you starting a guy and only playing him 14 minutes a game? It's just some kind of weird stuff that has been going on for 30, 40 games. And it's just like, what is Doc doing? So with a new player, you know, hopefully that helps Doc kind of figure some of these things out, because it seems like he has not figured it out this year in terms of the lineups and the rotations.
Yeah. To touch on one thing that you had before, when you said, like, if you think about Giannis, Kuzma, and Ajax, the way that they could transition, can't you just picture them like on a fast break? And in a situation like that, like Dame and Lopez can hang back because they're not going to catch up to those. Let those guys that are bigger, faster, you know, go on there. And if they make it and the defense comes back, like, it's great. You have Brook down low. Like, that's okay, because Dame, he's good enough on defense to disrupt it. And if Brook is trailing like that, he's already back. And then, you know, I think there could be a lot of possibility about that. You know, when you had Chris there, as great as Chris was, he was slow. It puts too much pressure on Giannis and Ajax to be able to do it just themselves. They're going to tire out. They don't have the chemistry. Like, it just doesn't work the same way. So I think that was just a great point you had. Doc has been disappointing, I think. Yeah, I don't... he seems like a guy that's trying to continue to convince you that it just takes time for his system to work. Like, he's just going, well, yeah, we'll get there. Like, well, just don't worry. Like, we're only in year 2. Like, don't worry about it. We'll get there. It's like, okay, well, I'm glad that you maybe have a 3 or 4 year plan, but I don't think anybody else does. Like, you really need to have, like, a serious run at this point before it's going to be like, look, it's not working. We have to figure something else out. Yeah, I just don't see him mixing things up. I think he does a great job of development. I think you can see some growth with some of these players, but maybe he needs to lean into somebody that maybe has a better scheme approach. And I think that was the thing that Darvin Ham apparently is supposed to be really good at. Maybe he hasn't leaned into that enough, or maybe I don't know. But yeah, Doc's got to step up and mix up some lineups, mix up the way he's doing things. We really have to make a serious run at this point. It's not like we're that out of it by any stretch. We're not going to beat Cleveland. I don't see that happening. But you can still make a run for a 3 or 4 seed pretty easily, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we have the talent, and it's just a matter of making a team. Like what makes a team good? It's not just good players. Lots of NBA teams have really good players. Some NBA teams have great players, and they're barely making the playoffs, or not even. Like Luka Doncic's Dallas Mavericks didn't even make the playoffs two or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that there's something about it, and why is it the Bucks? We won over 50 games every single season, and now we have the same main piece with Giannis, and we have a really good player with Dame, and we're not doing it. Like why is that? Like what is it about? And we don't even we don't even have a positive rating with the starting unit. Like it's just something's missing there, and Doc has not figured it out. And that's what the coach needs to, that's what you're hired for, and it's been a year at this point. So like you said, this is it, you got to figure it out. If you don't, you should be fired. If you don't figure it out this season, if this season kind of continues the way it is and we're kind of meandering and we lose in the first round of the playoffs, you should be fired and we should get a new coach.
If Doc loses in the first round, you got to be fired. If you can get past the first round, I'll give you another year. No matter, even if you get swept the next round. And the only reason I'll give you a little bit of credit on that is we looked at last year with Giannis and Dame, and I'm not saying Doc is responsible for this at all, but I'm just going to throw out. We knew that Giannis and Dame were not vibing. It just didn't make people were always questioning, did we make the right call? This is weird. And then now nobody would look back and be like, that was a bad decision. Most of us didn't think it was a bad decision at the time. Highest scoring duo in the NBA. They seem to really fit together. Part of it is going to be the two of them being professional and putting in the time and the work to work together. But maybe part of it is Doc and being able to lean. And this is how I got Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett to work together. And this is how I got Ray Allen to fit with all this. Like, I know how to work with these big names. So maybe that would buy him that extra year to be able to say, like, trust me, I worked on the biggest problem and now I can fill these other holes and we'll be ready to go. You lose in that first round, though, I'm not even going to give you that opportunity to sell me on it. Like, you're out. Like, you just can't do it. I don't have enough time to dick around with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really pretty much it next year, right? Like, in terms of the Giannis-Dame combo. I mean, I think they do have another year after that, but it's just like, it's getting too late. Like, you got to be really competing, or, maybe we're going to trade Dame next year if it's not working. So, anyhow, yeah, I think we're on the same page. And actually, I think that is true. Like, I think that'll happen. I think he will be fired if he doesn't show something in the playoffs. All right, well, let's jump to Kevin Porter Jr., other new guy. He's played a couple games at least, 2 or 3 games. Kind of had a big moment in the Minnesota game. So, at least that one game, he looked pretty great. Looked like an awesome fit. But that was just one game. But yeah, what do you think about how he's played and how you think he's going to fit rest of the season?
He didn't play right away. I don't think that first game we didn't see him at all. Yeah. So, I think, the Minnesota game, he was definitely flashing some ability. I think he had a couple moments where I was like, know your role. I felt like it was like, I don't like you taking that shot, or you are shooting way too early. And I think I'll be okay with that because, again, some of these guys, you go to these other teams, it's just a totally different scenario. You don't really understand what you're supposed to be doing, and you're just ingrained in a certain action. So I'll give you a little bit of leeway there. I think he does have some talent and some size and some ability to really help us out. He just has to fall in line and figure that out. And hopefully over this little break, they were able to do that. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic for sure. I think, like, the more I look back at the trade deadline where most people absolutely hated it, I don't know. I was okay with it. I think, we did all the things that we were looking to do. When you look at, like, going back to last year against the Pacers, like these are the problems we have to fix, and we seem to kind of fix them.
Yeah.
And then we open up all that financial space, to be able to do things in the offseason. We have the ability to potentially go after a big free agent that might be a great fit. So I don't know. I don't have a ton of notes on Porter, but I saw some little flashes here and there.
Yeah, I guess the thing I like about it is we lost to Middleton, who is a guy who's going to create his own shot, and that Kevin Porter Jr. can do that. Obviously not nearly to the same level, but we don't have a lot of guys who can even attempt it. And he in the Minnesota game he proved that he can do it and make shots sometimes. So having that guy off the bench who can give that for you, maybe Dame's not having a good game, or Dame's resting just off the bench. You need someone to create something. It's good to have that player. I'm curious how much playing time he's going to get. I'm afraid he's going to steal playing time from Ajax, thinking that now he's our defensive stopper instead of Ajax. I'm worried about that. He looked good. But at the same time, he didn't look like a defensive stopper, and Anthony Edwards did beat him a couple times and just missed the shot, so I give KPJ some credit on some of those, but I think it was a little overblown as some of the talk I saw on Twitter about him. Either way, him and Kuzma both are fitting pieces, doing things that no one else on the Bucks were doing. We needed those types of skills, and Kuzma is a higher level player that we're going to see more. KPJ, hopefully he does like what he did in the Minnesota game. Hopefully he does that, a couple times in the playoffs. Just if he can do that at the right time, then it's going to be awesome. I did have a couple other things about KPJ. A fun fact: Kevin Porter Jr. was actually drafted by the Bucks in the 2019 draft.
I think I did see something like that. That is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and then we immediately traded him and Tony Snell for John Lure of Wisconsin Badger fame. So he was not on the team for long, but I guess we drafted him. I didn't know that. Okay, then he obviously...
Bucks Hall of Famer, John Lure, by the way.
Yes, definitely. And Tony Snell.
Tony Snell.
So, yeah, we all know Kevin Porter Jr. has a difficult past, a lot of problems in his life since college, probably before college. So he had a domestic abuse. Apparently he abused his girlfriend. I don't know the exact details, but that's kind of the main incident. And my impression, I guess my understanding is he was not suspended, but no one wanted him on their team for last season. And that's why he didn't play in the NBA. I don't think he was suspended. So he played in Greece last year. Then he came back, and I guess since he was gone and he wasn't a part of the NBA did not do their own investigation at that time. You think they would have done it, a long time ago, because this was in 2022, 2023. In January 2024, he reached a plea deal. So that's over a year ago now. He reached a plea deal, and so the court system was done with this incident that is the focus here. So it's been more than a year, and we're beyond the criminal consequences and what might happen. Are you going to go to jail? That's all taken care of in January of last year. But the NBA is currently doing an investigation on that incident. Isn't that did you know that?
I did not know that. I guess I can maybe understand not doing it when he was in Greece, because you could be like, all right, well, if he's not coming back to the NBA, why should we waste the resources? But it also seems very odd that they would be doing an investigation now when, I don't know, the timing just seems off and weird. I don't understand.
It felt like there was already a self-enforced penalty of sorts. And I don't know if he just chose to go or if he tried to get an NBA job and no one hired him. That's my guess. And so it was kind of he essentially was, in a way, suspended for a year, a whole season, Secondly, the criminal case is over with a year ago and you're investigating it now. So there's a potential. And by the way, why does this investigation take so long? Started in, I think, September. It's February. Figure it out. Anyway, I guess my point of all this is there's a chance that the NBA suspends him. So we might be like about to enter the playoffs, and then they suspend him for 20 games. Like it's kind of hard for me to believe that the NBA is going to do that, but it seems like a possibility.
Yeah, it is a possibility, and that is concerning for sure. I'd be extremely shocked if that happened. I would think if the case does wrap up before the playoffs, which again would be a big if. I mean, if it took them this long to start, like what are the odds that they're going to like have their findings and ready to go? And then I think that it potentially could be part of next year. Like you will serve a suspension the following year. I don't think there's a lot of instances where it was same year that they had this suspension. I mean, even the Malice and the Palace, they suspended them until they could figure out what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then that's when the actual suspensions came in. Mm-hmm. So I think if it was actually something that was going to happen with him, he wouldn't be allowed to play.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents. Unless it's going to be like a we'll punish you next year type situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I just found that surprising that's like,
yeah,
that happened so long ago. The criminal case is all done, everything. Like, what are they even investigating? Like, just look at the plea deal. Like, this is what the courts have agreed to. I don't know. Okay, I got one more thing to say on Kevin Porter Jr. There's a lot of Kevin Porter Jr. talk.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to say, though, is anything you hear about him is negative. No one is willing to have a positive take on Kevin Porter Jr. because he beat his girlfriend. Who wants to support that guy? Okay, no one does. And so my hope is that everyone talks about him like he's bad at basketball because of that, and actually he's good. Like maybe that's the case. Maybe he's way better than all the podcasts we listen to, talk about him, and no one wants him on his team because he's bad at basketball. Well, maybe I think you're just saying that because he beat his girlfriend and you don't want that guy in your team, which is, fair enough. But maybe he's good at basketball. I feel like their opinion of him is tainted by what he did, the personal side of him. And I guess we'll find out. But I'm thinking of the podcast that we listen to a lot. They really were down on him. And I'm just like, I don't know. I think they might be down on him because of that, not because of basketball.
Yeah, it's the times that we live in, and not to go political or anything, but you don't want to be associated with somebody that's got a unpopular following for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I know domestic abuse shouldn't be considered an unpopular
certainly
thing, obviously. But I mean, that could be anything. Like, you dressed up in a weird way that was you probably shouldn't have done that, or you did something or said something. Like, it kind of all falls into a big bucket of like, I don't want something that might taint the image of me or my team or something like that. So I think that's a huge part of it, because look, there is a possibility that he's not found guilty, or his girlfriend drops the charges, or there's a possibility, even if it's a 5% possibility.
Well, that
that does exist.
He already took a plea deal. It was a misdemeanor, whatever it was. I mean, so he agreed to some fault, it seemed, but
yeah,
that's done. My understanding is he's not going to be charged with anything.
Right.
He already agreed to it. He's going to, I don't know, whatever. He agreed to whatever the consequence was, but it was not jail time.
Right. So, I mean, without knowing the story, and he probably is just like, I'm so sick of this kind of being a thing. Like, I've gone through this criminal thing. Like, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I just want to focus on play basketball. But, I mean, it's the way that we are. Like, that's what other people want to talk about. It's the infamous interview that I will always remember when Paris Hilton was arrested and came out and went on David Letterman's show. And he kept asking her about being in jail, and she's like, I don't really want to talk about it. And he goes, well, that's funny, because that's the only thing I want to talk about. And it's so true, though. It's like, nobody cares about, like, if Kevin Porter Jr. starts killing it in any capacity, great defender, great scorer, great all-around everything, every question is going to be something about that. Think of who was the guy, I can't think of the name. You're going to think of it. Who was constantly hounding Pete Rose by always asking him these interview questions at the most inopportune times. Huh. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
Oh, man. Anybody listening is going to know who I'm talking about. But, like, no matter what was happening, I think he was on NBC, and it'd be like, "Hey, Pete Rose, we're just celebrating people that had all-star, really great moments, and this is the anniversary of when you broke the record for stolen bases. And does it still hurt to feel like you can't go into the Hall of Fame because you cheated everybody and bet on baseball?" And you know that Pete was always just looking at him like, "Come on, man, like give me one fucking night to not talk about it. Like shit, like I get it. Like I'm banned from baseball. I'm just here to help celebrate. You have to bring it up again. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that's happening." And I don't want to lump it in because if Kevin Porter Jr. beat his girlfriend, he's an asshole. I want to make sure that's incredibly clear. But at the same time, like you just have to kind of put it out there. Like he had a criminal case that went one way. Him and her seem to be moving on. Like it just seems like you're kind of not letting things go at this point. You have to have the ability to move on in some capacity. So
yeah, and we can, if journalists want to hold him to that and keep asking questions about it, that's fine. Is he good at basketball? I guess that's what I'm saying. Like both can be true. He can be a total asshole who has to deal with this for more, many more years or his whole life maybe, and that's the consequence for doing a horrible thing. But at the same time, you probably shouldn't be, banned from the league based on what you did, at least based on experience and everything. I wouldn't think that would happen, right? So he can play basketball. Is he good? Is he going to help the Bucks win a championship?
Right, yeah.
Like that'd be great, At the same time, he also can be a total asshole who did a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to mean he's a bad basketball player. That's kind of what I'm curious
That's true.
of.
That's true.
Maybe he's good. We'll see. We will see. But yeah, it's definitely a different look. I guess that's my main takeaway. Kevin Porter Jr. and Kuzma both just give the Bucks a totally different look, which is kind of what we needed. It's just been like just a meandering season so far, and so that's as much as I want Middleton to be on the team and healthy and playing well, it's nice to just get this like totally different curveball kind of thrown in here, and let's see if we can make this work.
Real quick, just wanted to add Jim Gray is the reporter that was constantly, yeah, he was always up Pete Rose's ass all the time.
Way to go, Jim Gray.
Just to close that loop, yeah.
I wonder if Jim Gray went bald or if he was balding at all. That relates to our mailbag question. We got a mailbag question. I'll read the whole thing because I think it's worth reading. From Chris, maybe our favorite viewer out there. Watching a recent Bucks-Hawks game, I was struck by the grooming choices that Trae Young has made to cope with his thinning hair. He appears to be seizing the opportunity to grow as much hair as possible in the areas where it will still grow, but the thin spot in the middle leaves him with a sort of bird's nest on his head. I'm confident that a robin could raise a family in there with room to spare. It's pretty obvious that he would look better if he just embraced his fate and shaved his head. A wise man once referred to this choice as coming home. Who are your top 3 players that need to suck it up and come home?
That is a great question. First of all, I cannot agree more that I don't understand what Trae Young is doing. It is,
It's
oh my God. I understand you're growing it out to try to cover up the fact that you don't have a lot there, but like that has just never really been a good look for anybody. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, he has the nickname Rat Boy for a reason.
Yeah, right.
That's not
the way he is. I mean, he's really good at basketball, but holy cow, like that guy's got a lot of work to do.
It's a term of endearment, maybe. Not really.
Yeah. Do you have your top choices? You want to go first?
So I did. Yeah, nothing really came to mind. But I did find a couple. One, and I don't even think he's balding, but I just think maybe you should just shave your head because what you're doing with your hair, it's not working. It's Paolo Banchero. He's got those dreaded braided locks, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think he does still, or he has like the Cornwall. Is that what you call it? Either way. He's got either of those things or both. Actually, it might be a combination of that, and like they're flowing around, and it's the Cornwall thing. And I don't like his hair at all. I'm not sure what he's doing. I see some older pictures where he has just kind of like He's got actually, just kind of a normal hair, kind of a fro a little bit. I'd say go back to that or just shave it for Paolo Banchero. The other guy that came to mind, and I looked at some pictures, was actually Gary Trent Jr.
Oh.
And I think the headband kind of covers up maybe what's actually happening. Like maybe that's his strategy. Is I'm going to wear a headband, and I think he does a similar thing as Paolo Banchero with like the braided hair kind of. But I see a picture. If you Google Gary Trent Jr. and you click on images, or maybe it's different for everybody. I don't know. But when I do it, the second picture, it's him in a Bucks jersey. And the hair actually reminds me of Trae Young a little bit, where it's just kind of like fuzzy. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but
oh yeah, I see it.
And it is definitely like thin. His hairline's pretty far back. It's definitely receding. So yeah, when I look closer at Gary Trent Jr., I'm thinking, I think you're probably pretty close to the point where you should just shave it.
Yeah, those are great. I like those a lot. Gary Trent Jr. looks a little bit like Derek White, who would be obviously my honorable mention. He took him long enough to like make that decision. He's the poster boy for just do it. It's going to work out for you. Like you'll be fine. Like just do it, and nobody will talk about it, and you'll look great and move on. I think my number one is going to kind of be a funny choice, but it's going to be LeBron because he's almost there.
Said that.
He's almost there.
Yes, yeah. That's probably why I didn't say it. Is he? I don't know if he's doing it or not, but he basically is.
Yeah, I don't. So maybe that one doesn't count, but it's like you can't be so close. It's the guy that grows out the beard, has the head shaved down to the lowest possible number, and it's like just go a little bit more. Like you just the little bit of fuzz makes it seem that you're balding. Like you can see the outline. If you just go all the way, like it just all blends. Like just that's kind of what I would do. So I mean, LeBron is definitely somebody that has to be up there for sure. That's a really good question. I wish I had some people ready to go, but I don't. I think James Harden could pull it off just because he has such a huge beard. The beard, I think, does make a big difference to do that. I mean, Alex Caruso rocks a really good bald head with the headband. Sometimes having the accessory does help a little bit. So along those lines, like James Harden potentially could make something like that work. I'm not a big fan of the hairstyle that you were talking about. Jalen Brunson, his hair just bothers me just because it's like...
Yeah.
Part of it's hanging in your face, in your eyes. Like it's all for the style, and I get it. I'm not one to comment on people's hairstyles by any stretch, but why would you have it so it's still dangling in your front of your face? Like you just got like two strands right in your face. Like just move. I don't know. I'm kind of lost on it. But there's also a lot of these guys that have this hairstyle where it's like a reverse fro ponytail. But like it's like forward.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one, it's like, hey, you're just really rocking the fact that you have a lot of hair. I don't get it. It just seems like it's a lot of work and also not looking like a lot of work. So I mean, a cop out there might be that just because it just seems like it seems too much work. Just you're playing basketball, like it has to take so much time to go through and get that to look the way it is. So. Yeah, not the best answers just because I can't think of all the players right now, but I like the question.
I find it surprising when those guys have like a lot of hair, like the hairstyle you were referring to, or just a lot of hair in general, that requires some sort of, holder, something that's going to like hold it in place, rubber band or whatever it is, and that it falls out, or they have to like redo it, and you see them during the course of a game like 5 times, kind of like redoing the hair. I'm surprised that anyone is that dedicated to their hair to do that. When they're at this level, it's like, just get rid of the hair. Just have a short haircut. You're playing basketball like every other day for 6 months. Seems like the hair would be pretty annoying, but I guess it's worth it good for them. It's worth it for you. I would just be like, I am not dealing with this anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm biased, but like when you are playing the NBA, like I'm assuming you shower more than most people. Like I would say twice a day, probably on average.
Yeah.
When you don't have any hair to deal with, the shower is incredibly quick. incredibly quick, done drying quickly. Like, just for that convenience factor, I think alone, like, you're a professional player. Like, how much time do you really want to spend doing your hair? I mean, maybe it stays in place. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that kind of. But I don't know. I agree. It just seems like way too much work for dealing with what you have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when do you think Trae Young is going to shave his head?
I think he's still going to be, I'm going to say at least 2 years out. The over-under is 2 years, and I'm going to take the over. And I think it's going to come down to somebody like the TNT crew picking on him like they did with Derek White to be like, all right, like, you had your fun. You're really good. But you gotta change it up.
I like that over-under on 2. Man, I guess I would take the under. I feel like it's going to be 2 years or less.
Okay.
Or he just doesn't do it, and this is just his thing. Kind of like the unibrow, Anthony Davis. Like, this is my thing. I'm not going to shave the unibrow. I'm just Rat Boy. This is what I look like. It's part of my identity. It's part of the whole marketing, branding. I'm going to sell more jerseys. Yeah.
Speaking of, did the unibrow really take off ever? Because, I mean, Anthony Davis is a good player, but I don't recall that thing actually becoming a thing.
I don't think it took off. He tried to make it a thing, for sure.
Yeah.
It was the thing that was talked about when he was, younger. I'm sure there was merchandise with the unibrow and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, it just kind of went away. So, no, it did not take off, and it kind of disappeared. Like, when was the last time you heard that even?
Yeah.
So I just brought it up now, but I haven't heard anyone talk about his unibrow.
Yeah, so at this point, like, just get rid of it if you don't want it. Like, I don't think anyone's going to care or notice, or, like, it's not going to be a topic of conversation. And if it is, I'm sure people have other things to talk about. Like, come on, like, this is what we're talking about now in 2025?
All right, well, excited to get back to Bucks basketball. Hopefully they look awesome with a new look. Yeah, you got anything to say?
So we have three games coming up in the next 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Sunday. What do you anticipate our record's going to look like? I'll pull up who we got. Give me 1 second. We got the Clippers tomorrow at home. Bucks at Wizards, so potentially a
Chris Middleton.
Kuzma Middleton, yeah. And then Sunday we got the Heat at the Bucks. So 2 home games.
Okay.
The home games are against decent opponents. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to say we're going to go 2-1, and I'm a little bit scared that the loss is to Washington and Middleton scores 40 on us. I actually kind of want that to happen. I don't want to lose, but I want Middleton to have an awesome game.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think 2-1 is a great call. Just to be different, I'm going to go. I'm always optimistic. I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to say 3-0, and we're going to say that they looked really good.
Okay. I mean, Giannis is going to play, right? Do we know that?
I think Giannis is going to play. If Giannis plays all 3 games, one of these games is something we're going to win by 30.
Yeah. I mean, we should beat Washington by 30.
Yeah.
But which means we won't. So who knows what's going to happen? Sports. That's why I play the game.
Sports.
All right. Subscribe and rate us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Email us. Thanks, Chris. Let's get some more emails. Anyone else want to give us an email? We'll take it.
Anybody else?
doubledribblebucks@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at podddb. Until next time, go Bucks.